Okay, can I just start off with this season of Game of Thrones was probably the most intense season I have watched yet. Pretty much everything that I had predicted or hoped was going to happen has happened. The suspense was just crazy. Every single episode, I was just like, oh my god, what's happening? So if you guys haven't seen season 7 of Game of Thrones, spoiler alert, because I am going to be talking about season 7. So season 6 ended with Cersei blowing up the church, her last child jumping out of a window and committing suicide, and holy crap. Wow. I knew as soon as that happened that things were going to start to get intense. So Cersei is in charge of the throne now, and Daenerys and Jon Snow have teamed up together. There's a little tension in the beginning, and now, by the end of the season, you see what happens. So I was a little late to the Game of Thrones. I actually worked at Best Buy, and everyone was talking about it because, hey, we're a bunch of nerds, and this is something that we kind of do. And I was like, I'm not falling for that. You guys sound like crazy people. And then I ended up dating someone who loved Game of Thrones, and I sat down and watched it, and I was hooked after 2 episodes. I ended up binge watching several seasons. I think Game of Thrones was actually 4 seasons in before I jumped on board. That was probably a good thing because I was actually able to speed through all the boring episodes and keep going instead of being let down at the end of a really slow episode. Because Game of Thrones kind of does that. They kind of have some really good episodes at the beginning, amazing episodes at the end of the season, and then just filler episodes in the middle. But I am glad to say that season 7 did not do that. Every single episode, there was something going on, something crazy. The Stark kids are all back together again. Jon Snow is coming back with Daenerys to Winterfell, which is amazing. I'm a little bit worried because I feel like they're both on a boat, and I saw the whole fleet in the ocean as well right before it showed their boat. So I was like, oh no. I hope nothing happens to them before they get to Winterfell, because honestly, one thing I've learned is love makes you do stupid things, and she was warned. She was told to just ride her dragon up to Winterfell, and she decided to ride on the boat with Jon because, you could tell she had feelings for him. I feel like all the pieces are finally coming together because Sansa and Arya are back at Winterfell, and the last episode was amazing because we had Littlefinger, who was whispering in Sansa's ear trying to get rid of Arya. I don't know what he was thinking because their brother is now the three-eyed raven who can see pretty much everything. So I don't know how he thought he was going to get away with lying, because when you have a brother that can see all, it kind of helps you out at the end. And that episode was amazing. I was so done with Littlefinger causing all these problems. So it was so amazing to see Sansa and Arya take charge and take Winterfell back and just strengthen the bond between sisters, because at the beginning of Game of Thrones you could tell that they really hated each other. Now that they're adults and grown women, they are actually behaving that way. It's amazing to see the teamwork they have put together. I will say I saw it coming with the dragon. When Daenerys went up to save Jon Snow and the rest of them from beyond the wall, I knew that the White Walkers were going to claim one of the dragons. I just knew it. As soon as they made such a big deal about going up there to get one, to prove to Cersei that the White Walkers are real, I knew that Daenerys was going to go up there and one of her dragons were going to get turned. So that happened. Crazy. At first, a lot of people thought the dragon would shoot out ice, which would kind of make sense since the White Walkers are kind of frozen people. But in the last episode, we actually saw that the dragon breathed blue flames, which melted the wall, which was crazy. It was an intense scene watching the wall just melt away from the dragon blowing blue fire at it. And we're going to start off season 8 with the White Walkers being on the side with everyone else, which is crazy. One thing I would like to have in today's world are the birds that carry the messages to the different cities. I don't know how they know where to bring it. There have been several times where birds have been carrying messages, and throughout the entire Game of Thrones seasons, none of them have really been intercepted. A lot of times they've made comments where they're like, this person wouldn't have sent a raven with the message if it wasn't important because they wouldn't risk it being intercepted. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, how do these birds know which person to take it to? Like, how did this raven know that Daenerys was the one that Jon needed when he was trapped on the lake? But honestly, I would love to have one of those birds because I feel like sometimes text messages aren't as efficient as those birds carrying messages. So we also ended the season with Jaime Lannister leaving Cersei because Cersei once again has been manipulative. I figured it would have happened right after his entire army got burnt down by the dragon, but he held on just a little bit longer, and then Cersei was like truths with Daenerys, saying that the White Walkers were the true enemy and that they were going to team up together, and Jaime was all excited for it because he was ready to put the differences between them and fight the real enemy. And then he was sitting there talking to his head of the military saying, hey, this is what we're gonna do, we need to be ready by this time because winter is coming. And Cersei just walked up to him and she was just like, are you stupid? I'm not going to actually help her fight the White Walkers. And Jaime walked away. At that point, Jaime is just like, hey, are you going to kill me? And at first, when she nodded her head, I was just like, oh god, here it comes. But Cersei has a little bit of a soft spot for her brothers because early on in that episode, her little brother, she also spared his life when he was trying to talk to her about how sorry he was that all of her kids were dead. She could have cut his head off right there, but she didn't. Then she could have also beheaded Jaime, but she did not. So Tyrion and Jaime both got off right there, showing a little bit of a weak spot, I think, in Cersei, so I hope that comes into play next season. So I don't know about you guys, but my favorite characters have been Jon Snow and Daenerys from the beginning, and the fact that they are now teamed together is amazing. I love it. So if you guys have any guesses or would like to talk Game of Thrones, feel free to throw some comments in the comment section below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And also in the comments below, let me know who your favorite Game of Thrones character is, because I definitely want to know. I will talk to you guys next week. Bye!